Hey Dave, it's great to have you on. And we just had a little discussion before we hit record, So we'll dive into some of that probably that you shared with me. And I just wanted to say that first we met through BLN, which is an entrepreneurs networking group. And it's been a pleasure connecting with people like yourself, not just from there, but from everywhere else I'm connecting with people. And, that opened up opportunities for us to engage and get to learn and know each other a little bit better. So I'll let it open up to you, Dave, and you could just share a little bit about yourself right now. And if you want, we can start with what you're doing and then, how you came to be where you are.
I don't know how I became how I was.
We'll figure it out. Don't worry.
That's a deeper question. But I created a word about where we all are in life. It's called cluberty. It's that moment in life when we sort of get a clue of like, how did I get here? How did I go from WTF to being blessed? And that's really part of that process is getting going through life's journeys and some dead ends and some places where we got lost. So who I am is I'm a podcast host, I'm a speaker, and I'm also a mentor. So I use that instead of coaching. Everybody could call it differently. I call mentor because the things I work with are things that I've done and I know how to do it. So it's more than just telling you, hey, John, this is what you have to do and your life will be fine. I'm not sending in plays. I'm talking to you, listening to you, and then saying, hey, look, I've been in a situation like that. This is how I got through it. What resources are you looking at? I think that's really the big thing for all of us, is to know what resources we have and how we use them.
Hey, is you kind of like guide them, like you're
I guide them. Yeah. So, I actually just came out with I call it On the Path. My practice is called On the Path LLC. And the path stands for Personal Attitudes Towards Happiness. I like using acronyms. I have 30 years of corporate experience, so I have lots of acronyms. And by finding the right path, and I just came out with a comic book called The Pathfinder. One of the quotes that I enjoy using is a quote by Ram Dass: "We walk each other home." We can't walk the journey for anybody, but we can walk with them. And that's really what a mentor does. I've been a peer-to-peer recovery coach, so I've helped people through some very serious situations. And I think that peer-to-peer work is really important as part of people's mental health and mental wellness always. Because, you talk to somebody who's non-judgmental, not trying to solve a problem. It's a different approach, and not everybody wants to do that. Everybody, a lot of us want to give the solutions rather than just be there. And sometimes just being there is just as important.
Yeah, I find like just having you listening to somebody else sharing what they're going through, that if maybe you can agree with me, it opens up their mind a little bit, and they already know the answers. You know what I mean? Like you gotta open it up and share it out loud.
Yeah, and that's why I don't like I don't tell people what to do. So some of the modalities I use, I make sure that I ask for the clients what's their perspective, because a word that might be triggering for me might not be triggering for somebody else. And that's an important part. When I help people write books, the language in the books, you want it to be congruent with who you are. And if you're an entrepreneur, not only who you are, but that your business is congruent. A lot of people say, well, I'm just rebranding, and which I sort of cringe on a little bit, in that there should be one brand, right? It should be the name of your company almost doesn't matter. It's, hey, I'm Dave. I should be Dave on these calls as well as off these calls, in business or not business. Now, there might be some conversations I would have in personal life that I wouldn't have in business, but it still would be the same congruent. There's the alignment of who I am. And once you can get comfortable about that, I think that's one of the things where as entrepreneurs, we get uncomfortable sometimes, because somebody might be saying it in a different way that, we admire that way of saying it. And maybe I should change, or this way isn't working, and how do I shift that to some way that is working? And sometimes it's not going to happen the first time. You need to keep working with it. That's why understanding your brand and who you are as a brand really becomes valuable into moving yourself forward in all ways.
Yeah, it's how you show up to everybody around you. Yeah, great. Well said. So that's what you're doing now. But I know we were just talking a little bit. You know, you had some experiences in the past few months or whatever, and you had to but yeah, I mean, if you want to start with something like that, or if you want to mention stuff in the past that kind of got you, you know, what you were doing and led into what happened.
I won't leave I guess one of those hangers, so really, what we were talking about earlier is, last Friday, I ended my 30-year corporate career where I was working for high-end law firm, and then after that with one of the top 50 companies in the world by all the rankings. And, my position was eliminated, and I had been talking about this, and that was part of also the conversation of I manifested it. So, 20 years ago when I got divorced, I said, when I hit 55, my life's going to change in a good way, in a big way. And it did. My position was eliminated, which had nothing to do with my age. And, because I've been doing my entrepreneurial life as well, while I'm aligned with my corporate life, I was able to pivot, and I learned the right resources. So again, going back to what you were saying about, is there anything you want to start from behind? Yeah, about 10 years ago, learning modality. I went to, I guess we can even go back a little further to show you how the universe really brings you to where you need to be. When I went for my bachelor's degree, I finished up with a bachelor's degree in behavioral science. So that's 1998. So that's like 25 years ago. And I didn't use it for 15 years. I had a bachelor's degree. I was working for one of the top premier law firms in the country at a very high level, worked with high-end clients. There was many times I walked into CEOs' offices and I needed to do some work. I wasn't a lawyer, so I was more like a paralegal, but my boss would call me, a paralegal on steroids because I would do so much more. And so that was the life I was leaving. And that's what I left, is that high stress, high responsibility type of job at the law firm. And then I went to a corporation. And at that corporation, I also was a high level person where I would walk into the general counsel's office of a Fortune 50 company and speak to the general counsel when I needed to. And, that wasn't who I would report to. And there were times that I needed to speak to the CEO and for various reasons. So I knew how to work with the C-suite people. And 15 years ago, so to then move that up 15 years ago, is I was going through some personal challenges. And I went to therapy. And my therapist, who I really loved, I still do. I just don't, right now, I'm not actively in therapy. Bill Souls, he taught me this technique called havening. He started using it during my therapy sessions. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? I'm moving through my challenges and I'm shifting my body differently, mentally and physically. And I didn't understand it all. He said, well, this is why it's happening. He explained to me some science, and I now understand it because I've been certified in it. I was one of the first 80 people in the world to be certified in this technique, which now has several hundred people, and it helps people overcome traumas or things in their lives that they might have wanted to pass on, not pass on. And I've also used it for good, the power for not only helping people going through really bad situations in their lives, but also in enforcing the good things in our lives. I've worked with athletes who then also, want to improve and go to that next level in speaking as well as in all aspects, and then working with C-suite level people on how to get past their limiting beliefs. So because we all have limiting beliefs, and at the time, 15 years ago when I started learning some of these things, I had limiting beliefs also. I think we all have them. Some of us are better at overcoming them because we start speaking to ourselves. Go back to that speaking part, speaking to ourselves nicer. The person who we're with is really the person who we speak inside. Our inside voices are much crueler than sometimes our outside voices. But the trick is our inside voice, we're the only one who's listening. And because we're listening, we sort of believe it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, and I'm going to piggyback off your story here a little bit because, I was kind of in the same boat. I kind of manifested something as well, with the job, and my place shut down. So, I was like, I don't know what now, I had no idea. I didn't have a plan, and so here I am today doing this and doing some other things, but, it's like you want it to happen, right? And then when it happens, you're just like, what? Here we go.
Yeah. Because you know what it is, especially how our society is, you're supposed to have a job, right? A regular 9 to 5, go to the office type of job. And entrepreneur space, that's not the case. And not everybody's like that. I mean, I'm getting calls all the time from friends. Did you find a job yet? And I go, no, not yet. Sub jobs I've applied for. I am perfect for the job, and they still haven't taken me because I'm too old. When I talk to the headhunters, they're like, well, they loved your experience and you have a lot of experience. And, when I go, so, okay, if I didn't get the job or even an interview, what could I do differently? I'm a person, okay, if something didn't work, why didn't it work? And what could I do differently? Is there anything I could do differently? And they go, well, it's just really your experience, which is really kind of the language of, hey, you're too old. We don't want to take a chance on you. And I'm not that old in any way. And if they looked at my career, really looked at my resume, I've had 2 major jobs in my life, and I have a bunch of stuff going on outside my life. So I'm a great employee. I'm loyal to the companies I work for. And then I have my own interests outside of work. I think that's a really well-balanced, colleague that I'd love to have, but other people are not. And I've taken this next experience as diving into my entrepreneurial life that I've already been building, and I've been busier. That was one of the craziest parts. My job did hold me back in so many ways because I've been busier these past 2 weeks creating, implementing, and planning for some really cool things this year. Because I don't have a job, I have more flexibility. I just have to focus on one schedule, and it's easier to manage that.
Yeah. So how does it feel to be in the entrepreneurial space right now, not having a job?
I feel great because I just see, again, through overcoming my own limiting beliefs, I believe I just can't be stopped. And while, I'm not at the level where I want to be yet, I am really close. And, I'm like this 2 weeks ago, I came out with my own comic book. So I have it in hand, and not many people could say that. And, I'm now integrating that piece into my business, but also it enhances my ability to help people write books who don't know how to get past their limiting beliefs. It's more than just writing a book. I mean, that's why people go to ChatGPT. You can get a couple of books out there. You can. But the problem with ChatGPT, it could be very vanilla. It could be a lot of different things. And if you're doing it for your business, you don't want to be vanilla. You want to make sure that you have your voice. You want to have your brand aligned. You want to have the right level of who you are, not just saying who you are because you read a book. That's why doing the work is so valuable.
Mm-hmm. And it is. So, I commend you for keep moving forward. And I know it's just your early stages and stuff, but it sounds like you got so much on your plate, and you like see the future a little bit, right? So
I do. It's so close, and there's times I'm like, okay, even when things don't happen the way I envision them, I'm like, okay, again, I'm like everybody else. I don't feel great 100%. I just know that when I'm not feeling great, I can then ride it out, and it turns around differently. All I need is that one thing that gives me some sort of level of excitement. And I think that's like that for everybody. And when you see it and you have the clarity around it, that's why when I talk about branding with people, when you have the clarity around what you're doing and why you're doing it, and consistency becomes really important.
Yeah. And so having the clarity and moving forward is great. And you know you can do it, right? But do you ever feel that imposter syndrome come in and like, I'm not this, how can I do this? Like,
Yeah.
You ever feel that?
Yeah, for sure. I feel that at times because I'm not at the level where I see other people or it looks like other people are at, and I'm like, wow, and you have to be careful about that. One of my biggest, so among my biggest faults was that I used to live in an ego-based state of mind, and one of the things I don't know if I shared with you, and you might not know, is a little over 4 years ago, I tried to kill myself. I tried to, even though I knew how to help people in trauma and things like that, it's kind of like having that gym membership. I use this example a lot, having that gym membership and not showing up at a gym. So doing that is what I was doing. I was taking care of everybody else, but I forgot to take care of David. And now one of the boundaries I make sure is that I take care of myself as best as I can. And I still get overwhelmed. So to go to your answer is, do I ever feel imposter syndrome? Yeah, there's times that I'm like, am I really doing this? Am I really doing it? And that's, and then there's a little ego piece of it. When my comic book came out, I gave a few copies out and I wanted to hear it. I just want to hear feedback. Now, I don't want to hear, I'm not one of those speakers who go, oh man, was I great? And, I just want to hear all the great stuff. I also want to hear the negative stuff because I want to improve. I don't think this is where I'm at. I think I'm good at where I'm at, but I want to keep growing. I think we all want to keep growing and surround ourselves with the people who are going to help us grow and, sort of make us grow. So when I get my imposter syndrome, I take a deep breath or I start doing things differently. That's where knowing your resources and what works for you really takes you to that next level. It's among the things that take you to the next level. And I surround myself with people who are looking out for my back and who will bring me to that next level as long as I do the work.
Yeah. And that's very important, what you just said there. Those people around you can support you, guide you. Like you said, you're mentoring people, so these other people can be mentoring you in your business. And just guiding you and allowing you to find that space where you need to go. And I wanted to go back a little bit because you started mentioning branding, and now it's a bit in my head. Every time we're talking about something now, I just even the imposter syndrome, right? It's branding. So you came back to who you are. You're not changing yourself. You're showing up. You're being yourself. So I just wanted to bring that up again because it's just funny how, not funny, but it's just, when you mentioned that, I just keep thinking branding now. You as a person, Dave, showing up here. This is his brand. This is who he is, and you're sharing all your experiences. Even like you said, you were going to commit suicide and
Sure.
going through that, and being open and honest about that because some people hide that stuff, and and then
it's embarrassing. But one of the stories that I don't think you and I spoke about is when I tried to kill myself, I had heard a voice, and it said, "Go back, and you need to be a voice in the community to tell people it's okay." I mean, statistically speaking, 89% of people who attempt suicide are not successful. We hear about the 11% often, very often, but we don't hear about the 89% of people who might have tried and what's happened to that, because there is a stigma. People told me, no, that you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't tell people about it. And I've done the opposite. And, when I did my TEDx talk, I got reached out to by a bunch of families. Some of those people were people who were actively thinking about it or had tried it and weren't successful and were still in that piece of thinking about it. And two people, unfortunately, had already lost their family member, and they just wanted to understand it. And I would explain everybody's situation is different, and that, it's not easy to go through, but it is easy to talk about, because for me, I found healing in it, and I think it's one of my, being authentic. That's why, while I wear teal in most places when you'll see me speak, or even the networking groups, because that's part of my brand color, but I also like teal. I mean, that's why it's part of my brand color. I like teal. It's not, I'm just wearing it for business. But you got to be who you are. And that's why when I say I'm good for some people and I'm not good for others, because I'm honest. I'm going to tell you my flaws. I'm going to tell you your flaws. And the only way you get past them is to be brave enough to say them and to then face them. The scariest thing is facing your own fears. And, fear has a lot of different meanings. It's, false evidence appearing real, or fix everything and rise, and not that you're broken. It's just sometimes we need to be recalibrated. We need to, that fine tuning. I mean, we take our cars for an oil change. Sometimes we need an oil change in our mindset, or a complete overhaul of the engine at times because of how we were taught.
Yeah, real quick, my daughter loved the teal, so she'd be all over that. You know what I mean? I had to paint her room teal. But what would you say one thing would be that you would tell somebody to make a change, to get different thoughts and stuff? What's one thing that you can think of?
Yeah, so at least one thing is be honest with yourself. So a lot of times we know, or at least start paying attention more to your body. Like for me, so I know that in my shoulders, when I get too stressed, I that's where it resides. I never noticed it. I just all right, I just need to kind of crick my neck. I need to do something. But I now notice that when I'm not stressed, my neck doesn't need that crick. So just having those type of conversations with yourself, get to know yourself really good, because it all starts out from there. Even love, if you can love yourself. So after my suicide attempt, I was asked the biggest question of my life: do you love yourself? And I paused, and I was almost paralyzed trying to think of an answer, and which meant obviously that I did not at that time. And that's a big question. How many of us, you're a dad, and you might love yourself or you might not, but I don't have to ask you that question. Do you love your daughter? That's, of course. And that's the thing, is a lot of us look at love as an outside of our experience than an inside. And I've learned really in the 4.5 years that while I'm talented in some ways, I didn't love myself. And now I could say I truly love myself. And because of that, I'm a better person. I can love my kids better. Not that I was loving them wrong or differently. It was just different, right? We all make mistakes. They don't give us a how-to book when they give those little babies to us. And the same thing is like that in every other relationship in our life, is they don't give us a how-to, just go out and do it. And that's how we sometimes mess it up. And when we can go back to ourselves, that's where we get to repair ourselves. We get to fix the things that we want to fix, or look at it differently and work through it in a healing way. Where I'm part of a group that's called Mosaic Experiences. And, what I say is all those little pieces of us, whatever they are, they do fit into a beautiful thing. I always say a kaleidoscope, is still exactly what it's supposed to do. It's pieces that are intertwined in the right way. And in fact, in the Japanese culture, there's a word, kintsugi, of where if something's broken, they put it together, but they make sure you see the cracks, because then you can know that it's still useful. you put it back together, and it's put together by gold or silver, and really you celebrate that. So, that's the thing. That's why looking within is the best way to start.
That's well said. I completely agree with you. The only unfortunate thing is a lot of people have to go through something very traumatic to go ahead and try to love themselves. I think so.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because I don't know how can you raise a child and kind of guide them to love themselves. Like it's like that person has to do it. Yeah, I mean that's just a question that just came in my head, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think what it is you have to show the kids that you love yourself, that that you're respecting yourself, and then you tell them to love themselves. I mean, sort of, again, how I grew up with some of the limiting beliefs. My mother didn't take care of herself. My mother always put the kids or her husband ahead of us, and not us, but ahead of herself. And I remember, at 72, when we had to put my dad into a nursing home because he had Alzheimer's, I said, so you get to be who you are now because you've always been David's mother. You've always been, my sister, taking care of, her parents, her in-laws. And at 72, she didn't know who she was. And that was really sad. It was among the saddest things that I had to experience with my mom. Because at 72, she couldn't do anything that she wanted to do in her youth. She lived a life. She had a good life. She wasn't complaining about it. But we don't pay attention. Even if we're angry at our parents, the one trick I was once told is, remember, they're growing up while you're growing up. And it's just a different perspective. And that's why I with my girls, I just tell them, they don't, right now, they're early adulthood, late teens. So when I talk like this, they roll their eyes and they do all that the teenage stuff. I mean, I didn't know that I can get through the teenage years, and I'm not fully through it, so I'm not sure. But I think I can make it through. But it really is, hey, I'm going to tell them exactly why, because it does stick in their heads. They know that, for me, I'm the guy that they could talk to when the shit hits the fan. I mean, where other people become more of a challenge. Because I talk about my failures and they see my successes also, they know that it's out there. It's not, okay, I did something bad, so now I'm not worthy. I'm not this. So, being a role model for ourselves and in our communities is so important that way.
Yeah. You're not curling up in a ball, sitting on the bed, just, wondering how things are going to work out and not do anything about it. Now, that's well said, too. I thank you. So, Dave, how does somebody reach out to you to see your comic book, to, reach out to you as for a mentor or whatever you have going on? I mean, you got a lot going on. I
got a lot going on. I can help a lot of people. I've been, people go, oh, you need to niche down. I'm like, well, but I don't, because I have two lives, right? So in my corporate life, I have a lot of business experience, and I can teach leadership. I know how to organize. In fact, right after I left my corporate job, I picked up a client who said, I need some business experience, and I'm consulting with them. That was a job that I hadn't had beforehand. And so, and then there's the part that I've been doing for the past 10 years. I mean, I've helped veterans overcome the life experiences that they had during combat. And, so I wouldn't want to separate the two, though I don't know that I would necessarily go in to do trauma work when I'm in a corporate environment. And the same thing with my corporate environment. I wouldn't, I do a little bit. I like it. Like when I was in corporate, they go, you're a little hokey at times. I take that as a badge of honor. I know that's not necessarily, but I think what they were really saying was that, yeah, I don't mind saying the things that need to be said in a peaceful and loving way, and that's why I have that podcast. So I really believe that that's where and how they can get in touch with me is, my name is unique, so it's David Chametzky. There ain't a whole lot of them out there. So you can go to my website, which is my name, social media, is my name, and LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter, if anybody, or X, sorry, it's as Goofy Jam, and that's really what it is. It's easy to find me. I'm on my website. All of my links, including my podcast link, is on my website.
All right, great. Yeah, thank you. And before I ask you the question I ask everybody at the end, I just got to know, what's up with the bat? What's the bat symbolize?
Well, so one, you probably hear that I have a New York accent. So I a lot of the things I do, including the charity I do, is all tied to the New York accent. Goons for Good is the charity, but with the bat is my podcast, Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. And the bat is being authentic today, and that's really what we want to do. That's what we were talking about earlier. It's not about violence. I'm not going to beat anybody up. It's taking that swing. If you've ever swung a bat, you hit the sweet spot, and you might be a line drive. I don't want to always talk about the home runs. It's easy to hit a home run. But that line drive, when you know you did the best that you could do, and it might be just to the shortstop, that's powerful stuff to get up again and do what you want. And that's really what it is knowing your boundaries and taking that swing, stepping into the plate. And that's why being an entrepreneur is scary, stepping into that batter's box. But when you take a swing and when you hit it as good as you could, there's some sort of internal pride. No matter where it goes, you couldn't have done anything better.
I love it. And you're going to hit a home run. Don't worry. It's coming.
Doing my best. Yeah, no, the average is high. And, I was never a big power hitter, but I was the guy that they wanted to drive in the runs. At the end of the day, that's what you want to do, is move the energy and move the base runners around.
Right. And you're doing it. I know you are. So my question is, what are 3 key things you've learned and used along your journey?
Self-care. It all falls apart when, at least for me, is self-care, and which also ties into the ego. So it can't be about you. When I talk to clients, I might tell them my story, but it can't be about me. If it's about me, then it's a problem. I mean, even when I came out with my first book and I started up on the Times Square Jumbotron, I had to keep myself in check to make sure that my ego didn't get fed too much. Not that I didn't celebrate my wins. That's the other part. That's step 2, is celebrate your wins, even if it doesn't look like a win. If you've never, ever done something and then you're now starting to do something in a positive way, celebrate that. It's not about hitting that $5 million, 6, 7, 8, 9 figure that you might want. That could be a goal, but also celebrate that first dollar that you got. Celebrate a new idea or a new partner that you integrate with. And lastly is always look back. Don't let it be the big thing that you're looking at. Make sure that the rearview mirror is the appropriate size and it's not the windshield, but make sure that whatever happens really turns over, and kind of look up as you're climbing up a mountain. It's good to look back, not to be scared, but to also celebrate. Again, going back to your celebration, celebrate where you are and where you're going is just as important.
Yeah. I like that last one. Just because that's why I kind of like tell people, how we connected and stuff in the beginning. Because you go back and you go, for me, I go back and I go, how did I get here?
Yep.
I mean,
I was on.
You followed the trail, and I've had guests come on and they go, this is great. And they went back in the past and they were like, didn't even think about it, but this is how they got to where they are, So those are 3 great things. And I appreciate you coming on, Dave, and sharing everything you shared with everybody. I know we probably just scratched the surface on Dave, but it was really great. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. And, as we talked about before, I love to support you as well, John.
Yeah. Thank you.